Welcome to the Green Room. I'm your host, Jeff Farragher, music and artistic director of our Symphony of the Kootenays. We have a very unique presentation for you tonight where we'll be learning all about what it's like to solo with the Symphony of the Kootenays. Before we get to the program, I'd like to take a moment to thank our sponsors, BC Arts Council, Columbia Basin Trust, and many of the organizations that help the arts in our community. After tonight's live premiere of the show, we invite you to join us over in our Zoom chat, where we'll get to have the opportunity to speak with our guests, ask them questions, and be a part of the conversation. Just click on the link below in the description of this video and join us at around 7:15 Pacific, 8:15 Mountain for a great chat. Also, to remind you to please subscribe to the Symphony of the Kootenays YouTube channel, where you can catch up on past episodes of The Green Room as well as other content we've created. As well, if you enjoyed tonight's presentation, please do take a moment to hit that like button below and share this with your friends so we can reach a wider audience. And now to our presentation. We are joined by two very special guests tonight. These two have both performed with the symphony on several occasions and have each been soloists with us. We're joined tonight by pianist Amy Zanrosso. Hi, Amy. How are you doing?
I'm well. How are you doing, Jeff?
I'm doing great, and welcome to the show. It's nice to see you and speak with you again. And we also have with us Natasha Hall, who grew up in Nelson, has played with the symphony in the past, and for those of you who remember her beautiful Brahms concerto, she's with us tonight as well. How are you doing, Natasha?
Hi, Jeff. I'm really well. Nice to see you again. It's been a while.
It's great to see you again as well. So thank you to both of you for being here for this show. Normally, we've been interviewing players that regularly play in the symphony, but I thought it'd be a great perspective to look at the Symphony of the Kootenays from the front of the stage. So, of course, it's been an interesting year and almost a half now with all the crazy things that have been going on around the world. And a lot of our musicians have been sharing with our audience what that year has been like for them as professional musicians and navigating their way through that. How has that been for each of you in your lives, and given what you've been doing before and what you're looking to be doing afterwards? Amy, what's that been like for you this year?
Well, like everything, there's been a lot of good and bad. So at first there was a lot of bad because I lost a ton of work. Mm-hmm. And last year was really hard for a number of reasons, because I lost my dad in January. And then I came back to the Bay Area. I did a concert on March 1st, which I didn't realize was my last concert of the year. And then COVID, everything shut down on like the 16th or something here. And so it was really startling. It was, and I'm for everybody I've talked to, it's been like this. But I have to say that as we progressed through the year, we kind of found our footing, and a lot of good things have happened. I met some new musicians that I've started working with. I've solidified relationships with friends that I wouldn't have had the time to do otherwise.
Well, that's good to hear. And certainly looking at the positives and how we've been able to adapt and find a bit of space. I think that's a common theme for a lot of, especially professional musicians who spend so much time on the business side, as well as practicing, and all of the sort of very rushed and hurried life we have. It's sort of forced us all just to take a breath and look at our priorities. How about for you, Natasha? What has this year and a half looked like for you?
This year has been a year of a lot of change and transition for me. I moved back to Nelson last March, I guess it was, after having lived for the past 7 years in London, where I was a member of the ECO, English Chamber Orchestra. I guess technically I still am. And also freelance playing with some of the other symphony orchestras in London. So this year has been like a total 180. And the extra time I've had due to COVID really has given me space and time to focus on some musical projects of my own that I've been wanting to do for a long time, like learning more solo repertoire, getting to do a bit of recording, and building a website, which I've put off for the longest time. And like Amy said, just getting to solidify relationships and focus more on connections. That's felt really amazing, because I haven't had time to do that to the same degree in the past years. And also, kind of like you were saying, Jeff, just recognizing the importance of rest, and kind of like in nature, how nothing blooms all the time. I feel like taking a pause and stepping away from music sometimes is just such an important part of the creative process. So I've really come to appreciate rest and space and downtime as well.
Agreed. Well put. And I hope that, many people in the world are reflecting at least and finding that some good has come from this as well. So we are going to start our show off with some music. And to remind those of our listeners who may have been in Trail or Cranbrook to hear Amy play the Beethoven Concerto with us, such a fantastic experience that was. She's prepared a piece for us. Amy, what are we about to hear?
I was supposed to play Beethoven 4 again last fall with a local orchestra here in Oakland. And of course it got canceled. So I'd been relearning Beethoven 4, which is the first concerto I played with the symphony. And I kind of kept doing it. I decided, okay, I'm going to memorize it and I'm going to get it really under my fingers for when things open up again. So what I'll be playing for you is the cadenza and the ending of the first movement of the Beethoven. So the cadenza is the part where the soloist gets to kind of show their stuff off, right? So the orchestra stops playing and then the cadenza starts and there's all these arpeggios and all this stuff. They plays through all the themes. And then after the end of the cadenza, the orchestra comes back in. But in my recording, obviously, I don't have an orchestra in my living room, so we'll just be listening to me playing out into the end of the piece. And it works because the piano never stops playing. And it misses the orchestra, but at the same time, if you don't know the piece, it actually sounds really great with just the piano part. So that's what we'll be listening to.
Well, that sure brought back some great memories. And now we're going to talk with Natasha Hall, who is a violinist who grew up in the Nelson area and studied music here before going off to do great things all over the world. Natasha, how are you doing?
I'm well, thanks.
Great. Well, I'm very excited to share your stories with our audience. Maybe tell everybody a little bit about your young life growing up in the Kootenays, learning violin here. What was that like?
I feel so fortunate to have grown up in this incredibly beautiful place. So many of my colleagues grew up in big cities, and of course, there are many merits to that as well. But having the opportunity to learn violin at a really high level and live in such a beautiful place is just really feels like a gift. So I'm really grateful for that. I began my violin studies with a wonderful teacher and violinist who used to be the concertmaster of the symphony, Wendy Herbison. And she gave me a really solid technical foundation and instilled a great sense of joy in me for playing music. I think I really owe my passion for music a lot to her teaching. And then since I was about 12, I think, I started commuting to Calgary to continue my musical education, where I studied with Bill Vandersloot at the Mount Royal University in the pre-college program. And thanks to my amazing and very dedicated mom, she would drive me to Calgary every 10 days. And then I would spend 5 days in Nelson, 10 days in Nelson, 5 days in Calgary. So my musical education, especially in the early years, is really thanks to a lot of amazing and supportive people around me. I really don't think I would have gotten into violin and continued on without that incredible support network. But music is always something that I really wanted to do. Apparently, when I was 2, I told my mom that I'm going to be a violinist, and she spent a number of years convincing me that I really should play the cello because she plays the cello, but I guess I wouldn't have anything to do with that. So eventually, when I was 7, she let me start playing the violin and haven't really looked back since.
That's awesome. So that's something that you've just known has resonated with you since day one. That's really incredible. So what happened after high school? Where did you go from there?
So after high school, I took a gap year and I was taking lessons from Andres Cardenas, who teaches at Carnegie Mellon University in Pittsburgh. So I was still living in Nelson at that point, and I would meet him once a month wherever he was on tour and spend a number of days with him. And I would get 6-hour lessons every day. It was incredible and very intense. And then after that, I went on to study with him at Carnegie Mellon University in Pittsburgh. I did a performance residency program there. And then I spent a year in New York at Manhattan School of Music, studying with Batinka Kopec. And from there, I went to London to study with Rodney Friend and study with a number of other people for a short time over there as well. And then I started working.
Fantastic. And so when you started working, you were in London and was playing with an orchestra the first engagement you got there?
Yeah, I was really, really fortunate to be introduced to the English Chamber Orchestra as my first work, really. So I got to play with them a lot and tour all over the world. And it was just a phenomenal experience being surrounded by such incredible musicians and such an inspiring environment to be in. Just getting to learn from everyone around me and getting to play with so many of my heroes and some of the halls I had dreamt about all of my life. And an amazing way to see the world as well. Not that you really stop anywhere long enough to really explore it, but at least I know where I'd like to go back to.
Fair enough. And now growing up here in the Kootenays, of course, a pretty small community, there's not a lot of large orchestra or even chamber orchestra opportunities for a student growing up. Although many of our audience members may remember you from even before being a soloist with us, you had the opportunity to perform as a violinist in our section. Just tell us a little bit about what that was like and how much that played into your ability to just step into a professional orchestra when you were older.
Yeah, so that was I think that was my first actually professional orchestral experience. It was really exciting, a little bit intimidating at first because it just requires such a different way of listening. but it was exhilarating and amazing to be part of such a big sound. I'll never forget that. So yeah, I'm really grateful for the skills that I learned at a young age, getting to play with the symphony, and look forward to more.
So you have a video to share with our audience. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So I'm going to share a video that I made a couple of months ago. It's Bach's first solo sonata. And I chose to record some solo music to kind of commemorate the solo journeys that we've all been on this past year. So in a way, it's kind of like a musical prayer or reflection. It involves two things that are really important to me: music and nature. And this video was recorded in a space that my dad's company Spearhead built. And it's recorded by the light of hundreds of tea lights.
That was fantastic. Thank you, Natasha. And now we're going to speak with Amy Zanrosso about her background and growing up in the Kootenays and what her life's been like and what she's doing these days. Welcome back, Amy. You grew up in Castlegar and studied piano there. Maybe tell our audience a little bit about how that journey started.
I guess that journey started with a piano in Vancouver that my cousin had, and she was taking piano lessons. And she brought me over to the piano and sat me down. I was, I guess, about 6 years old or something. And she taught me how to play little things. Like she taught me how to play Heart and Soul and just like the bottom part and the top part. And I sat there with her for as long as she would have me. And my mom came in at one point and she was like, what is my daughter doing? And after that, I just turned around and I was like, well, I need to play the piano. I have to play the piano. I really love it so much. So when we went back to Castlegar, my mom, being the industrious, like Italian immigrant that she was, she like asked around, like, who can I talk to about like getting my daughter piano lessons? And so she ended up talking to Mr. Bertuzzi, who was the band teacher at Stanley Humphreys, I guess, at the time. And being a fellow Italian too, it's easy for them to communicate, right? So she said, hey, my daughter's wanting to take piano lessons. What do we do? And so he gave her the name of the piano teacher that I studied with till I was 15. And that was Ava Tischer. And it was, I'm so glad my mom did that, because if she hadn't, I wouldn't be where I am now.
Absolutely. Mothers are a key part of our our musical journeys for most of us. Mine's similar to that as well. Of course, lots of people take piano lessons. It's one of the most popular instruments for people to take, but very few of those people have that sort of internal drive, as well as the interest to put the work in and go the distance. So what do you think sets you apart from maybe other students that that just take it like you did once a week and then sort of stop at one point?
Well, I just really loved it. There was nothing else I liked doing more. Like I said, it's, I knew by the time, I think I was 14 or 15, where I was like, this is really what I want to do with my life. And my parents, were like, does she want to be a musician? Oh my goodness. How's that going to work out, right? They were super supportive. But I mean, my parents, they didn't really know what to do besides support me. And they always thought, okay, well, she can make a good wage, because they were paying my piano teacher like more than my dad was making at the mill. So that was a big deal. And so with their support and with my drive, I ended up at university and with a great teacher there, Bruce Vogt, and he supported me through those 4 years, and it just kept on going. I just never stopped. And I'm really glad I didn't.
Well, that's fantastic. And I think it does speak, it's interesting, similar stories here with our great soloists who are people that just knew from very early on that this was something that they had to do. So you left Castlegar and went to UVic for your undergraduate degree. And how was that like, and where did that lead?
My undergrad was fantastic. I loved my teacher. I liked UVic. It wasn't huge, and coming from Castlegar, that was probably a good thing for me at the time. It felt like a city to me. So I met all these fantastic people, fellow musicians, and that I'm still in touch with now. And it was a great experience. I really loved my time there. And then once I finished at UVic, I took 2 years off and I went to Italy, and I did master classes and I studied with teachers there. And I just kind of soaked up the culture, because I wanted to know where I was from, or like where my parents were from, so where I was from outside of Canada. And then after that, I came back to Canada and went to McGill.
Awesome. So that's one connection you and I have. And when we first met, it was so funny discovering that shared connection. I think we missed each other just by a couple of years there. When I had met you, you were just finishing up there in Montreal. And it was amazing to me playing with a pianist that knew as much as I did about, maybe more in some cases, about the cello repertoire. And so what was it that brought you to the United States, and what are you doing there now?
Okay, well, what brought me here is my husband, because he got a job offer out of the blue, and it was the type of offer that you don't turn down. And so we didn't, and we just picked up and came here, and I came here with nothing. I didn't have a visa to work with. I had to apply for a special visa so that I could actually work. That took about 8 months. And in those 8 months, I used pretty much every single connection I could possibly find from Canada to people here in the Bay Area. And I just went after those connections, met a lot of people in the classical music community here, and everyone was so helpful and so inviting. And I started getting work, and it just snowballed. It was great.
What sort of is the main staple of what you're doing in the San Francisco area?
I do a lot of freelancing. I have a violin and piano duo that I've been working with. I think she was one of the first violinists I met when I moved here, and we just hit it off and started playing together and doing lots of concerts. I'm a faculty member at the San Francisco Conservatory of Music, which is really fantastic. I work at the pre-college there, and I coach chamber music. And I'm the chamber music coordinator, so I get to like listen to all the pianists and say, oh, you'll be good with this group and you'll be good with that group and you'll play this. And it's like the perfect job for me. It's so good. What else? Oh, I play with a local chamber orchestra called the Russian Chamber Orchestra, and they let me do concerti like every year, which is a lot of fun. I had a piano quartet for a while before COVID, and we played like pretty much every piano quartet there is in existence.
Of course, Amy, you're a fantastic soloist, and I'm sure that those concerti are very enjoyable, and we always enjoy having you perform with us. But I would say that, if I may, that your specialty really is in collaborative chamber music. And so you have prepared, or you have a video prepared of you doing that. Do you want to tell our audience what we're about to listen to?
So a really great thing that came out of COVID is I started this relationship with this cellist that I'd always heard of, but I'd never actually met. I just heard really good things about him. And I saw on Instagram one day that he had moved to Piedmont, which is this place that's just like 5 minutes away from where I am in Oakland. So I messaged him and said, hey, I know you just moved to town. Do you want to get together and play together? And he said, yeah. So we came over and we have our masks on. We've never met each other. And we just started playing. So this grew into like this, we get together and read stuff. And we decided, okay, well, we're going to record the Pulang for a specific reason. And so the recording that I'm going to show you is the fourth movement of the Pulang Cello and Piano Sonata. And so it's me and Evan Kahn, and born of COVID.
Well, that was fantastic, and I certainly look forward to the opportunity to play with you again, Amy, at Made Me Miss our cello and piano duets. We're now going to talk with both of our guests and get to know a little bit about their orchestral experience and what it was really like to solo with the Symphony of the Kootenays. So, Natasha, you, of course, have had lots of orchestral experience, a lot of professional experiences in your day. Do you want us to tell us a little bit about mostly the orchestral experiences you had prior to playing with the Symphony of the Kootenays and of course, a little bit after as well?
I think that in any orchestra playing, it requires a certain kind of listening, and that's something that I was initially exposed to in the Symphony of the Kootenays. And yeah, getting to play in the orchestras in London as well, I just found it really inspiring again to be surrounded by so many incredible players and just to be exposed to so much great repertoire, both the traditional repertoire and a lot of contemporary music in the BBC Symphony.
And so, of course, yeah, that listening piece you mentioned. What about, like, for example, anything like even like sight reading? Of course, we do RCM exams. There's a little bit of that here and there, but really, until you sit in an orchestra section, you don't quite have that experience yet. What was that like for you?
So exactly. Sight reading is something that I really didn't practice much growing up. And then I moved to the UK, which is the whole creative process is based around that skill. There's very little rehearsal time. So you kind of have to be able to sight read. It was a jump into the deep end and sink or swim kind of experience. Those guys are phenomenal sight readers over there. They can read pretty much anything. So I guess just power of assimilation in a way, just learning by everyone around me. And yeah, it's an important skill in orchestra playing for sure.
It definitely is. And it's one that you really can only learn by having that experience. And how about for you, Amy? Of course, the piano not being, pianos are in orchestras, but, those opportunities are few and far between. Was Symphony of the Kootenays your first real experience playing with a large ensemble like the symphony?
It was. And it came out of the blue, like you just called me up and said, hey, do you want to do Beethoven 4 with us? And I said, do I want to do that? And then, yeah, I said, let's do it. And it was great because that was my first, I'd learned concerti in school, but I'd never gotten to play them with an orchestra. I never really thought I would even because I was just so loving chamber music and not even thinking about the soloist track. So getting to play with the Symphony of the Kootenays completely changed my idea of what I was capable of doing, really. So learning that concerto forced me to learn something that was, chamber music is hard, no doubt about it. You play like really tough stuff, doing like Brahms, the F minor piano quintet. It's so hard. But then playing a concerto with like 40 other musicians, it just ups your game. And I was so thankful that you asked me to do that because since that happened, I've been playing concerti and it's made me a better player. So playing with orchestra is like the pinnacle of chamber music in a way, and I feel that when I play with the Symphony of the Kootenays, I feel like I know the musicians for some reason. Maybe because they're all from like around where I grew up, and even though I might not know them personally, I feel like both times I felt so comfortable with the orchestra and just so enveloped by them, really. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. Yeah, of course. And, and that's certainly something I think a lot of our musicians, even our regulars that play with us for every program, speak about is that sort of that community, that warmth, that sort of very supportive vibe that the Symphony of the Kootenays has. And I know many of the orchestras around have that, but there's something really special about our orchestra. Of course, I'm a bit biased. Natasha, how about you in terms of just your approach to playing with others, either in a chamber music group or inside the orchestra, or how that leads to the way you approach playing a solo in front of the orchestra?
So I think it comes down to listening. That's such an important way for me that I try to approach it. In chamber music, I think I try to see my role as a how can I make everyone else sound their best? And what are ways that I can help shape that person's phrase so that they feel really supported? And just knowing when it's my time to play out and when I'm more in a supportive role. So that would be a similarity. In terms of playing with the Symphony of the Kootenays, it was just such an exhilarating experience for me getting to play my very first Brahms concerto with orchestra. It was really a milestone in my career. And the group, as Amy was saying, it's just such a lovely group of people, so warm and welcoming. And I felt really supported. I remember it being quite a powerful experience, just having this wall of sound behind and around me. And I really took that performance kind of as large scale chamber music. And I continue to try to do that in anything that I play, but really knowing and understanding everyone else's part as well. So while I had the solo part, everyone else's part is so important as well. And just knowing what my role is in connection to all of those other voices.
So we're going to wrap up our show with a collaboration between these two fine soloists. Amy, what are we about to hear?
Okay, so the piece we're about to hear is the first movement of Dvorak's four romantic pieces. These pieces were originally written for string trio, but were transcribed for piano and violin. And I thought they would be a good piece to play, simply because Natasha and I aren't actually getting to play it together. If we could have been in the same room together rehearsing, it would have been fantastic. We could have learned all four. It would have been great. But because she's in Nelson and I'm in Oakland, and we're doing this virtually, we had to pick something that could be put together pretty easily without knowing each other's playing, and also rhythmically continuous, so that there aren't like a lot of breaks in the piano part or a lot of breaks in the violin part. And this piece, the piano plays all the way through. It's the same beautiful motive, and the violin gets to sing this gorgeous soaring melody above it. It's gorgeous music. It's Dvorak at his best. They're romantic pieces, and this piece represents that very well. And we get to collaborate, unfortunately not together, but hopefully we still get to make some beautiful music with it.
Well, that was truly beautiful. And I do look forward to the opportunity to make music with you two, each individually, and maybe we could all do something together in person at some point. Amy, it's been so great to speak with you, and I certainly do miss you being so far away, but it sounds like you're doing great there. But thank you again for being involved tonight.
Thanks, Jeff. This was so much fun. I'm so glad to see you, and I really like reading Natasha.
And Natasha, thank you so much for joining us as well. And I look forward to actually possibly getting the opportunity to work with you in the near future here. As things open up here and we get the opportunity to play together. Of course, we've been talking about having you a little bit more involved in the Symphony of the Kootenays in the near future. Thanks again for being here tonight.
Thanks so much for having me, Jeff. It was great to see you again, and I look forward to collaborating more in the future. And Amy, it was so wonderful to meet you virtually. I really hope that we get to make music together really soon. So thank you both.
Well, it was great to catch up with those two, hear their stories, and find out about their experience soloing with the Symphony of the Kootenays. That's it for tonight's episode, but if you're watching this live with us, please do click on that link in the description below and join us over in our Zoom room, where we'll continue the conversation. If you've enjoyed tonight's presentation, please do hit that like button below, as well as subscribe to the Symphony of the Kootenays YouTube channel, and share this video with your friends so we can reach a wider audience and more people can get to know our Symphony of the Kootenays. Head on over to our website, sotk.ca, to learn more about the symphony, as well as to see past and future episodes of The Green Room. On June 19th, 2021, I'll be joined by Rob Fahey, one of our bass players, as well as Tim Plate, our keyboard player, to find out what it's like for them, from their perspective, playing with the symphony, as well as being professional classical and jazz players in the Kootenays. That'll be on June 19th at 6:30 Pacific, 7:30 Mountain, right here on The Green Room.